Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's with me. It's my main man, Reggie. What's going on, Reg?
What up, world? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. The entire week is a little bit better after a Washington win. Um, but as they say, you enjoy it for 24, 48 hours. You turn the page and you got the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football.
Well, this is true, man. That's what they say. They meaning the team.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm gonna still ride this, man, until we
Oh,
play on
fans
Sunday,
do. Yeah.
until Monday.
Uh,
So right now
and,
we still 1-1 and in first place until that game is over on Monday night.
That's right.
That's how I roll. That's how I get down. And, and so until something change, we are still in first place at 1-1.
and
But
and with us being in Dallas, the best weeks is a Washington win and a Dallas loss. So that's what we got
absolutely.
to enjoy this week with them losing to the New Orleans Saints. As a matter of fact, I didn't talk about it on the other podcast, but I'll share with listeners. As Reggie and I were flying back from Washington to DC, I'm
No,
sorry,
from DC
yeah,
to
from
Dallas.
Washington to Dallas. We both had our commander's gear on the plane going in and everything, and I'm sitting in my plane in my seat, and I see this girl, big old cowboy shirt, big old star on her chest, walking by, and she kind of looks at me and
She's
smirks.
proudly walking, peacocking.
She just kind of walking like, yeah, I'm a Cowboy fan, right? She didn't. They they just gotten a butt whooping, but she was still wearing her shirt, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I said, hey, I said, did y'all win the game? She goes, nah, we got spanked. I said, what was the score? She said 44-19. I said, I knew that. I just wanted to hear you say it, man. Everybody, her boyfriend and everybody around him, just busted out laughing in the flight, and she even smacked me on the shoulder and kept walking on by. So I had one there, and then she had some words for you because she was already prepared at that point. She had some smart aleck remark that the Cowboy
Yeah, yeah.
fans try to
She
say.
wanted me to, yeah, good luck, yeah, whatever. Enjoy your one little win, and
Yeah, yeah,
blah.
yeah,
Typical Dallas reaction.
yeah.
Like we're
But
gonna win more than one game, but whatever. I mean,
but
mad. Don't be mad at me. I'm not a Saints fan.
but we've got a win. Unlike the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are 0-2. They lost opening week to the New England Patriots. That was a little bit of a surprise for a lot of people. And then they turn around trying to get a win, and they had to face Kansas City week 2 after a loss. That's not who you want to face. It was a tight game, but they ended up losing at the end of that game, and they fall to 0-2. And not that they're a bad team by any means, but I would say Cincinnati has a little turmoil, a little too much talk, not related to like on the football field. There's a lot of drama in the off season and everything going on with them, and if we can give them another loss, um, things might get ugly in Cincinnati. What do you think?
Well, certainly, I don't think many people would think that the Bengals would be 0-2 after 2 weeks. But to your point, they're not just 0-2. There seems to be a little lack of harmony in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow's not playing great. Jamar Chase obviously had his contract dispute that is still lingering, and I think it's affecting him a little bit. He doesn't seem to be a happy camper. And so,
Well, and even T. Higgins
and
in the
T.
off
Higgins,
season.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
So there,
you're talking your 1, 2, and 3 stars on the team, offense or defense, were kind of either disgruntled, not happy, not playing well. Yeah. So
right, and so to your point, right? Their 0-2 looks a little different than the Baltimore Ravens 0-2. The
Right.
Ravens are 0-2, right? And they just lost 2 games, and you're like, man, that's a little shocking, but they'll turn this around. The Bengals are 0-2, and you're like, boy, this looks a little unstable. Um, but for Washington, though, on paper, they're still a better team than us. And
Correct.
so, despite there being some lack of harmony and some issues that's happening internally in Cincinnati, um, they're favored, I think, by 7, 6.5 or 7. I think the last time I looked, and some people have already put out their predictions for this week, and it's unanimous that Cincinnati wins this game on Monday night against our beloved Washington Commanders.
It shouldn't be a
So
surprise.
I'm not surprised, and
Right.
it just furthers my point that despite how things look externally for of that organization, they're still a solid football team and could easily win this game on Monday night.
Sure.
Because we're at different phases in our organization, and like I said, on paper, they're a better team than us. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's at the moment it's going primarily, I think, based on history, right? Where they sat the last couple of years and where we've sat for the last couple decades. It's understandable, but if they are not the team that so many people, I mean, because some people had them contending for the Super Bowl this year, and not that they can, it's still very very early. But if they're struggling, Washington needs to take advantage of that. Um, smack them in the mouth, get them looking at each other. Uh, you know, get some of the people to try to do more than what they should, which a lot of times causes errors and mistakes, and see what happens. Uh, Last year, we talk about Higgins and Chase and Burrow defensively. I thought that they were a little bit better than they were last year, but Cincinnati Bengals were in the bottom third. They were 21st ranked defense last year, so it wasn't a great defense. Um, it, it might be the weakest defense that we've faced so far. The Giants have a solid defense. Their offense is just really struggling, and Tampa Bay's defense is a solid defense. I'm not trying to say that they're dominating defenses, but they're solid defenses. I don't know if Cincinnati is that at this point. So
well, they're one of those teams where they're not a solid defensive team. Um, but and Grant, keep in mind the stats that I'm talking about here is just through 2 games, and right now they're second in the league against passing, and they're 26th versus the rush. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, one of our strengths thus far through 2 games is our running game,
right,
right, with the duo of Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. But from a passing, we've not been lighting it up per se in the passing game, and but that feeds right into their strength on the defensive side because they're second in the league in pass yards allowed.
right,
And
and
so with that, it's still going to be a tough sledding on Monday night, um, playing on the road, in Cincinnati. But it's going to be interesting because again, Cincinnati, I think, is going to be looking at this game as somewhat of a get right game.
sure,
They can't, they have aspirations of going deep into the playoffs, so they can't start the season 0-3. You have a team like Washington that is on the rebuild, and you can't let them come to your house and sneak a win out, right? If you're Cincinnati. But Washington has to be able to take advantage of the situation and recognize what's happening in Cincinnati and come in and sneak a win. And so, things that we haven't seen thus far this year is the appearance of Terry McLaurin. I don't think that we should be overly concerned about Terry or his lack of production thus far this season. But the question has become, will this be the game that we see Terry featured, right? Will Cliff scheme Terry open a little bit more? Will we throw the ball a little bit downfield? Because again, we've seen two games and they've looked totally different from week 1 to week 2. It was a lot of running the ball in week 1 against Tampa, and then it was a little bit more of the passing game, along with rushing against the Giants in week 2. So what will week 3 look like? Are they expanding the playbook? Are they going to scheme Terry? Is there something about the Cincinnati defense that will allow Cliff to feature Terry a little bit more um, in this game? Or does he just says, hey, listen, they're not very good against the run. And unlike his predecessors here in Washington, former coordinators who seem to not want to run the ball, does he stick to running the ball, which is our strength with the running back duo that we have? And that's going to be
Right.
interesting to see what Cliff does, because we talked about how we all think that this coaching staff would be smart and make adjustments. And you stick with what works.
Right.
And right now, the running game is working. So will he run the ball and not put this game um, on the back of Jaden Daniels?
And I mean, to that point, I think Cliff Kingsbury has got the reputation previously of slinging the ball around, right? Um, but if you look at his time when he was in Arizona, he was roughly a 50-50 margin of passing and throwing. He had a lot of dynamic passes. He likes to go every if his offense is all working like he wants it to, he definitely wants to go downfield and take some chances, maybe a little bit more chances than some other teams. But he does run and pass at roughly a 50 rate. Now we're running the ball a little bit more. I mean, and part of it comes with success. You know, when you're running against the Giants and you're having success with it, you're keeping it out of their hands. You're having 8, 9, 10-minute drives. I don't care how your offense is, that always is sets up success. Now, yes, you got to turn some of those field goals into touchdowns. I think you and I talked, you have seven field goals. If they just have 5 field goals and 2 of them they convert to touchdowns, you're at 30 points. 30 points should win you most games in the NFL.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're going to run like that. Don't get me wrong. But just converting a couple field goals into touchdowns is a big difference maker. But Cincinnati has struggled on the passing game also. Jaden Daniels and
Joe Burrow.
Burrow, their stats aren't too much different. They've 410 yards passing versus 422. Jaden Daniels has a higher percentage of completion percentage, and you would say, well, that's because he's throwing it short, right? A lot of short passes. Well, my guess is, and I haven't seen the games, but my guess is Joe Burrow has also, because he has a 6.5 yards per attempt, right? Where
A little
Jaden
less than
Daniels
Jaden.
is 7.7. So you're over a yard more. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot of short yardage passes that they're throwing as well. So
Well, it's interesting that you say that about the stats of these guys that are almost identical.
at the moment,
yet,
yes,
yet at the moment, yet naturally, one guy is playing well and one guy is struggling. Right? It just
yeah.
Joe Burrow's expected to play better, so therefore he's the struggling one, and Jake Daniels is the young rookie, and he's doing good at the moment. Right? That's the I guess the what people are saying, I guess, about Jake Daniels, right? He's playing well. He's doing he's doing what he's expected to do. He's coming in. He looks like he belongs, and yet the stats aren't overwhelming. But yet, compared to Joe Burrow's struggling this year. He's not playing well.
And
So
I think it's a team overall, right? Um, the I mean, and their number one wide receiver isn't a receiver, right? They're the most receptions in 2 games and the most targets and the most yards is their tight end. Mike, is it Gesicki? I
Okay.
believe it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Their tight end is the leading receiver. When you have Jamar Chase and Higgins, like I said, attempts, yards, and even targets is the number one receiver. So
So, so they're the Cincinnati Commanders.
I guess so. I commented on week one on Washington's offense about how everything was 10 yards and in. I think in week one, we threw the ball as far as attempts. I think it was 3 times past 10 yards. Um, this time it was that 9 times. Nine out of there was 29 pass attempts. But what I noticed also was almost half of the passes were short of the line of scrimmage, right? It was in the flats. It was, screen passes, whatever. Um, but as far as in the air, 13 out of 29, almost half of them weren't even passes beyond the line of scrimmage. And that's fine for some, but I think Cliff Kingsbury would like to stretch it down a little bit more. We didn't throw the ball for more than 20 yards in the air. There was no let Terry go. Talking about Terry or whoever. De'Ami Brown is supposed to have this, the home run speed. At no point did they say this is a good point, a good opportunity for us to let one go and see if we can catch the Giants off guard. Um, we'll see what it looks like this week, but it's just kind of some observations of how we're playing the ball, expanded it out a little bit, but nothing dramatic from week one to week two.
Well, the guys that do this for a living get paid to watch film. Excuse me. Talked about how the way Cliff and the organization is bringing Jayton along is actually pretty good. They talked about how they're getting him more comfortable, getting him with the speed of the game, getting the ball out quickly. I think he has one of the quickest release times, if you will, in terms of
Correct.
he's within, I think, 2 seconds, the ball is out of his hand. So there's a lot of part of the quick game that's being deployed by Cliff and the staff at this point. And I don't know if that's personally, I don't know if that's just what we're going to do in the short term and then maybe get teams to start kind of playing up and then that opens up, or they're just going to slowly expand the playbook. I don't know what they're doing, but they're being praised a lot nationally by people who have played the game and know what this is about and what it takes to bring guys along. Talked about that Cliff is doing a masterful job. And I've heard several people on television talk about how they're doing this, and this is looking good because again, Jake Daniels being praised, Caleb Williams is not, Joe Burrow is not, right? And so people like what Washington is doing, man. And so I guess I have to take it and believe it. And we've said before, and we have to continue to remind ourselves the biggest thing that we need to come out of this year is knowing that we have our quarterback. And this year is not necessarily about wins and losses. And again, we want to win, but it shouldn't be about just wins and losses because the front office couldn't address all the needs in one off season. And we need to make sure that we found our quarterback. But damn it, I still want to win though. Whew.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. My dogs agree also.
they, they said that James got the dog in it. That's what they're trying to tell you, man.
Exactly. The
They say he got the dog in him.
yeah. But and I agree 100%. I think from a team, a long-term team perspective, I think we're going to need to expand the offense for success, right? Teams are going to, you've got 2 games now to see the little bubble screens that we're throwing over there. Some of the stuff we're throwing in the flat. Some of the stuff that we're doing are uh, a lot of times your running plays are just you're better than the guy in front of you. Um, but they're gonna, there's getting to be enough tape to where defenses can make adjustments or put in a game plan for what we're doing, right? Um, and so
Cliff's just baiting him, man.
well,
He's baiting him.
and that's kind of the thing. Cliff needs to be ready to expand. Jaden needs to be ready to expand and see how they play. Because I noticed, because we were at the game, man, there was a lot of predominant amount of plays where the Giants uh, defense, 10 out of 11 players were within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. I mean, everybody, they'd have one safety that was about 8 yards back, 8 to 10 yards back, but everybody else was 7 yards and in. And to Washington's credit, they still moved the ball with everybody packing the line like that. But there's going to be some teams out there where that's going to be a bigger challenge than what we did against the Giants. And if we're able to continue to have success and move the ball against all the teams, then our offensive line and running game is a little bit better than what we thought. We talked about week one not getting enough pass protection, but maybe this style of what we're playing best suits not just the Jaden Daniels, but the offensive line and what their strengths are too. We always talk about Jaden Daniels, but again, does that best suit the talent that the offensive line has?
Well, clearly, if their ability to run block is a strength of the offensive line, that's great. But you still have to be able to pass protect, right?
Sure.
That game winning drive that led to the drive that led to the game winning field goal, the offensive line protected. I mean, he had two big chunk plays, but that only happens if they pass protect good, very well, and give Jayden the time. You got to allow plays to develop down the field. They've not been consistent doing that because Jayden has clearly been running a little bit more than I think most of us would like to see. But if they're doing better at the pass protection, then he's not going to take off running.
Right.
If any of you guys saw, the Monday night game with the Falcons and the Eagles, and Kirk Cousins is still coming back from his Achilles injury, but on that last drive, man, he had all the time in the world to sit back and allow. Yes. I mean, I think they drove 70 yards in a little over a minute, and so
with minimum pressure on Cousins,
minimum pressure, and he is nowhere near the athlete that Jayden Daniels is. So the offensive line is doing good, in terms of run blocking, but they still have to get better and improve in the pass pro, that kind of deal. But with that being said, though, will we get our first passing touchdown for the season?
What do you think? The odds are with us that it will happen, right? We are moving the ball around. A bigger question to me is, will we stop shooting ourselves in the foot in the red zone? Because whether we're running the ball, passing the ball, I mean, we had the ball, the red zone is within the 20-yard line. I mean, we were within the 7-yard line a couple times. First and goal, at least 3 of the 7, if not 4 of the 7, and didn't punch it in, mainly because of shooting ourselves in the foot. That alone is why, whether you call it passing or running, is the number one reason this past week why we didn't score a touchdown.
I understand that's the reason, but we still didn't do it.
And yes, we will be scoring touchdown through the air this week. Touchdowns, plural.
You want to go on and make a prediction of who you think it'll be? Who's on the receiving end?
I'm gonna go with really, I think the only person that he has a rhythm with, if there's anybody, it's going to be one of two people, and they both start with the letter E. It's going to be Eckler or Ertz is going to end up catching his first touchdown.
Okay, I thought you was gonna say someone else, but I agree. I think it's gonna be Austin Eckler or Zach Ertz, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's gonna be Austin Eckler. I
Yeah,
think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of those out the backfield, and he's gonna catch it and run it in, and I think he's gonna do his little guitar celebration, and I think that he's gonna be the first receiving recipient of the one Jayden Daniels' first career touchdown pass in the NFL.
that sounds good. That sounds good.
So
And, and and hopefully it's not the only one for the day, right? I don't want one touchdown and 6 field goals.
no, we don't. We know Austin's name now. Okay, so we don't need to get here and see him kick 6 field goals again. To your point, okay, let's let the skill guys get in the end zone a little bit.
What's his last name? What's the kicker's last name?
Austin.
That's not what it's.
Austin.
When I see him on the field, it doesn't say Austin on his back of his jersey. What does it say, Reg?
Come on, man. We trying to embarrass me, but it's Siegler. Come on. Come on, boy.
Siebert.
You know what I mean?
It's Siebert.
Siebert or Seaver? Siebert.
Seibert. Siebert.
That's what I said.
It's exactly what you said. I'm sorry. I had to adjust my headset. But the production people have cleared up the crackling in my headset.
Yeah, and anyone out there listening, you must have ran through a bad spot because that's exactly what I said.
Yes.
Austin
Bad
Siebert.
cell coverage.
So,
well, Reg, is it that time?
It is that time, Kenny.
There it is. What's your name? What's your number? It's a scale of how we feel confident wise on Washington winning the game this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. And we don't play the Cincinnati Bengals that often to really have I don't have a positive taste or negative taste about the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, they're kind of one of the just a extremely vanilla generic team, even though they've had success, recent success since Burrow's got there. I'm extremely neutral on the Bengals.
I think the last time we played them was 4 years ago, right? Or maybe 5, which was Chase Young's rookie year, right? Remember the end zone hit on Burrow, and that was when Burrow tore his knee up, right?
Yeah.
And we've not played him since then.
Yeah. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and go first. I think you've gone first the last couple weeks. And this is probably the game where I feel the least positive on. We've got somebody at the bar who has given on more than one case, he's given a 5. And to me, a 5 is sitting on the fence, right? I can't do that. I'm going to be consistent of what I've been doing every single week. Just about, I'm going to go with a 6. There are a lot of things that Washington did last week that I like. Defense needs to play a little bit better, but I like what they were doing on offense. They moved the ball all day long, through the air. Granted, they weren't going downfield, but they have got their timing down on these little screen passes and bubble passes and Austin Eckler, slipping out and everything. They've got that down, along with the running game. I think you're going to see more of that with a little bit of an expansion this week. But my concern of where it's only a 6 is because, man, it always worries me that, the talent that we're talking about and Burrow, Chase, and Higgins will get it right. They're going to get it right at some point this year. I hope it's week 4 and not week 3. But that's my concern. And while I'm only at a 6. So.
Okay. All right. I don't know that I fully agree with a 5 is sitting on the fence. I mean, it's a confidence number. right?
Sure.
It's just, it is what it is. But that being said, man, I don't feel as good about this game in terms of our ability to win. Um, we talked about it earlier, and that was a little bit how the Bengals just haven't played well all season. And, they're 0-2, but the odds say that they're going to eventually get it together and start clicking. And
Right.
I'm with you. I hope it's just not this week on national television. Um, the other side to this thing is we've not played a complete game,
Right.
right? We saw how we played against Tampa. We saw how we played, against the Giants. And I can easily say that we've not seen the best of Cliff, the best of Jayton's at this point. So is this the week that we see that happen for Washington? The other side of that thing here is this is our first prime time game under the new regime. But we also have a lot of new players, right? We talked about how in the offseason they turned over about 60% of the roster. So would the lights be too bright for a lot of our young guys? Jake Daniels, Mike Sarensteele, Quan Martin, Brandon Coleman, right? Will the lights be too big? So at the end of the day, my confidence number is 5.5.
Wow.
So
He
I'm
just
not,
creeped over the fence,
yeah, I'm not in the middle,
right?
but I'm a little bit kind of like how when you adjust the sound in your car, right? And you fade it, right? You're in the middle, but you go a little bit one way. So I'm a
Yeah.
5.5 on the scale on the confidence meter, whether or not we win this game. And, we're playing, and I failed to mention that we're also on the road
Yep.
in Cincinnati, and regardless of how Cincinnati is, they have a very strong home base and a very loud stadium. And so the fans will show up and show out. I have no doubt on prime time on Monday night in Cincinnati. So all these things are against us. And so the confidence level is not as high. And that's why I have to go with 5.5.
And the funny thing is, Reg, I'm not going to give you a hard time on that 5.5 because that was going to be my go-to number. That was my knee-jerk reaction number. But I thought you'd be like, oh, okay, so you're just going to go 0.5 over. And I thought you would give me grief for it.
Well, that's simply because you think a 5 is straddling the fence, and I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
Right?
Your number is your number, right?
It
My,
is. It is.
your, name,
But a
your
5 is
name's
not straddling the
name's
fence.
your name's Reggie, and your number's 5.5. What's your name?
That's
What's your
it.
number?
That's it, man. So
I tell you what, and still talking about concerns. Another concern and is we watched a rookie wide receiver eat our lunch last week,
yes.
and you know, there's no reason for me to think that Jamar Chase can't do that and more, and has a better quarterback to get him the ball, not overthrow him 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, however many times it was. So
Think of the
it's
LSU connection. You had Malik Neighbors last week.
yep,
You got Jamar Chase this week. You got Joe Burrow this week.
yeah,
You got Jayden Daniels this week, right? A lot of LSU blood there.
yeah,
But to your point, though, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they've seen our defense. They've seen receivers feast on our defense for 2 consecutive weeks. And unless something drastically change or click, wide receivers is going to feast every week. I mean, we got, again, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins this week. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. next week. And then after that, you got the guys up in Cleveland, Mari Cooper and those guys up in Cleveland. So it doesn't get any easier
no,
for our
not
defense.
and it never does in the NFL, right? You might get 1 week a season, but you better be ready. There's too much talent out there waiting to take advantage of your mistakes. Let's
Yes.
hope Washington and Cliff Kingsbury can be the one finding the mistakes and finding the cracks in Cincinnati's defense. But
That's it.
you got anything else, Reg?
That's it, man. That's it. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. We will be back to give our thoughts on the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, man. And so until next time, y'all, as always, peace out.
Peace out, knuckleheads.